Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? All right. So this week's Parsha, this week's Torah portion, it begins with the story of Yaakov, Jacob encountering his brother Esav, and this is after many years of Yaakov leaving his father's home, leaving the place that he knew so well, the place of his father's home, and leaving Eretz Yisrael. And he goes and he marries, and he has many wives, children, lots of material wealth. And Yaakov is going through a major inner transformation before he encounters Esav, and we have to see and unpack this transformation. So we know that Yaakov is called, in the Torah, Yaakov is called the Ish Tam. Tam, for lack of better translation, would be a simple man, uncomplicated person. He's a Tam. So that's one word. Esav is called Esav because, like Rashi brings down, Esav is called Esav because it comes from the word asui, something that's completed. So Yaakov is simple and Esav is completed. And at the end of the story, before he journeys forward, and in the parts it says, Vayavi Yaakov Shalem Ir Shechem, that Yaakov comes Shaleim, complete, to the town, to the city of Shechem. So Yaakov is now Shalem. Shalem is another word for completion. Now Tam in the Torah is also a word for completion. Sheva Shabbat says Timimois Tiyano, that it should be 7 weeks, complete weeks. So Tamim comes from the word complete. So we have 3 words that we have to dissect and have to have a better understanding what these words mean. One is Tam, which we said can mean simple, but it also means some type of completion. One is Asui, which means also completed or finished. And one is Shalom, which is also means complete, but we'll translate it as whole. So what is the difference between Tam, something that is someone that is whole, something that is simple, between Tam, between Asui, between something that's completed, and between something that is whole. And the real inner movement that Yaakov experiences is he goes from a Tam, which is a simplicity, to a Shalom, which is a wholeness. What's the difference between simplicity and wholeness? And in fact, that both of these words mean something, that it represents a type of completion. So let's understand first where Yaakov is at this point in this juncture. At this point in his life, Yaakov, like we said, leaves his father's home from a place that he's a Tam, and he's a single person, he's living alone, he's a Yoshev Oil, he sits alone in the tents, which means that he sits and contemplates, he sits and learns Torah, and he's a man of the tent. He's an introvert, he's living a spiritual, refined life. Yaakov then travels to Lavan, Haran, he marries, he becomes a shepherd, he becomes a very wealthy man with a large family, with many wives. He becomes a very affluent person. Now, the two characters, the two brothers, Yaakov and Esav, represent these 2 types of energetic qualities. Yaakov represents the spiritual man, and Esav represents the Ish HaSada, the man of the field. So Yaakov is the Ish Tam Yoshev Oil. Yaakov is the Tam that sits in the tent, which represents the spiritual, contemplative type of person. And Esav, his brother, represents the more brute, physical, very tangible, immediate type of person, existential person. He is a Ish HaSada, the man of the field. Now when Yaakov begins his journey, when he leaves his father's home, he begins his journey as an Ish Tam. Simple person. Simple, uncomplicated, and a very elevated person that has really no connection with this material world. Everything is granted for him. He's living in his father's home. He's living in his father's tent. So whatever he needs physically is given to him by his parents. And he has no contact with people necessarily. He's living a very detached, transcendent type of existence. Yaakov gets a blessing from his father that you'll become a very wealthy man, which we spoke in the past. This is the blessing that belonged originally to Esav, but Yaakov receives this blessing. And he returns, he's going back to his father's home. And as he's returning back to his father's home, he's returning after this many years, after a few decades, he's returning back to his father's home. He is going through what we'll say is a type of identity issue. I don't want to call it a crisis, but identity issue. Because what is this question? This question is he returning a different person than when he left? And if he's returning as a different person, is that a better person, or God forbid the opposite? And this is the way the Torah describes this internal encounter. Verse 25, Pasuk Chafei, in the beginning of the portion, says like this: Vayivasa Yaakov levada. Yaakov is left alone. Vayavek ish imay adalois hashachar, and he was struggling with a man until the morning, which means throughout the night he was left alone. He was left alone, meaning that he was without his family. Simply, he was left alone. So he was on the other side of the river, and he's struggling with this man until the morning rises. And the obvious question is, when it says Vayivasa ish Yaakov levada, Yaakov is left alone, that suggests that he's literally alone. So if he's alone, who's this ish? Who's this person that he's struggling with? It's a contradictory in terms. If he's alone, then he's not with a person. So the deeper reading of this verse is like this: Vayivasa Yaakov levada, Yaakov is left alone, meaning he's left alone in his own contemplation, in his own thoughts. Vayivasa Yaakov levada is keniskav shemoy levada. This is the idea of being alone with Hashem, alone with his deepest self. He was like in a meditative posture, alone at night. Vayavek ishima, and a man was struggling with him. Who's this man? This mysterious man? So Rashi says, brought down from the Medrash, that this mysterious person is the Sari Shel Esav, is the prince of Esav, which means the archangel, the spiritual, metaphysical truth of who Esav is. His root, the root of his soul, or the root of his consciousness, the root of his being. That's the Sari Shel Esav, which seems to be like a negative side. The Medrash also says, there's another Medrash, the Medrash Rabbah says that Ish is actually Michal. Michal is the archangel of Yaakov, Sar Shel Yisrael, the Prince of Israel. So he's struggling with the Ish, the mysterious Ish, and the Targum Yonasan also seems to suggest that it's a Malach, it's a positive angel, which means that he's struggling with this Ish means that he's struggling with his own inner self, between the two parts of himself. He's alone with himself, but Vayivaser Yaakov levada, he's left alone, but with a sense of maybe a split type of personality. The word Vayivaser is connected to the word we have with Avram, with a bris bein hapsarim, which is between the two parts. So there's a struggle between his two parts. The Ish Tam and the Ish Sada. There's an internal struggle of Yaakov, which is, who is Yaakov? Who am I now? Am I the same Ish Tam? Am I the same simple man, the spiritual person, the lofty being that left my father's home? Or have I, God forbid, in this process of achieving material wealth and amassing a tremendous amount of substance, of things in his life, have I become the Ish Sada? I've actually become the man of the field. Have I changed? This is his question that he's asking himself, and he's struggling with himself. And the Ish, the man, the person, the thing that he's struggling, this entity he's struggling, is the Ish of the Sar Shel Esav, the Prince of Esav, and the Ish of the Sar Shel Yisrael, of the Prince of Israel, which means it's the internal struggle at night. Why is the struggle at night? Because it's unclear. It's there's ambiguity here. He's left alone. So Chazal tell us, the Talmud tells us, the Gemara tells us in Chulin, that he's left alone because he goes to return for Pachim Taneh, for small little jugs, which seems to suggest that he's going back to pick up small little, trivial little pieces of material wealth that he left over on the other side of the river. And Yaakov sees that. He sees that he returns to go across the river to pick up everything that he owns. And then he asks himself this question, why am I going to pick up all these things? Do I need all this stuff in my life? And are these stuff in my life changing me from being the ish tam, the simple, whole person, the way I was before, the certain type of completion, to a person like Isha Sada, like Esav? And this is what he's struggling at night, alone, being there until the morning rises. And this is why when the morning comes, and it sees ki lo yachaloi, which means the verse says that power doesn't have any force over him, which means that he recognizes, and there's a realization, the inner realization from the Sarah Shal Esav, that he is complete, that he has been transformed in a positive way, and the Sarah Shal Esav, the Prince of Esav, the angelic quality of this material world has not really took hold of him, and cannot take any tfisa, cannot take any possession on Yaakov's body. There's no place for him. There's no place for this type of being, this type of energy within Yaakov. He says, Sholcheni, ki ola shachar, this energy, this internal Isha Sada says, okay, now you can set me, so now you can set me go, because at this point, I don't serve a purpose anymore. Yaakov says, but I will not send you until you bless me. Why is he asking a blessing from something that he's trying to get rid of? And what is this? What is the Sarah Shal Esav? What does it say to him? Vayomer Elav ma shmecha. He says, what is your name? And he says, your name is Yaakov. He says, from now on, your name will be Yisrael. What this means is, first of all, why is he asking a blessing? And what is the blessing that he changed his name from Yaakov to Yisrael, from Jacob to Israel? So the name Yisrael comes from the word Yashar. Yisrael means Yashar Kel, direct Kel, straight Kel, Yashar Kel. Yaakov is damaged in this encounter with his Tzalei. He becomes damaged in the place of his hip, which means that he experiences some type of crookedness in his body, which means his body becomes limp, and he cannot walk straight. And the name that he receives from this encounter is actually the opposite of that, which is Yashar, correct, straight. So before, his name means Yaakov, which comes from the word Akev, the heel. And now his name is Yisrael, which comes from the word Rosh, head, which also represents Yashar, straight. And in this encounter, he becomes straight and yet becomes injured. And the understanding is like this, and this is important to understand. When Yaakov comes out of this whole event, he becomes a Shaleim. We said that he originally begins his life as an Ish Tam. Yaakov is Ish Tam Yoshev Oil. And now, Vayava Yaakov Shalom Yershchem. Yaakov becomes a Shalom, becomes complete, becomes whole. There's two types of completion that a person can have. In fact, there are three. One is Asui, which is Klipa, which is Esav. Esav means, I'm already finished. Asui means I'm done. I've already completed. I am already a complete person. There's nothing more for me to learn. There's nothing more for me to grow. There's no tomorrow. There's no possibility. I am who I am right this moment. I'm living right in the now and for the now. That's Esav, Asui. That's the negative quality of completion. Completion is a sense that I'm already full. I know everything that I have to know. I am the person that I could become. And everything in my life is exactly perfect the way it is. Which in deep level, it is true, but there's both the being and becoming in our consciousness. But this is the idea of there's no becoming. I'm just being, I just am. That's Asui. Yaakov begins life as an Ishtam. Ishtam, Chazal also tell us, the sages tell us, that Tamim Tia Hashem Elokecha, a person should be Tamim. The word Tam means that a person should not be influenced, should not feel the effect of the zodiac or other influences. That's the definition of a Tam. A Tam means a person that's unaffected by the material, physical world. Yaakov, for the first 60 plus years of his life, was a Ish Tam Yoshev Oyel. He was a man of the tent, and he was a man of Tam. He was a man that was unimpressed and unaffected by this material world. His completion, his sense of completion, his inner sense of wholeness that he experienced up until that point was a wholeness that was devoid and empty of any things. He was completely transcendent of things. He had no objects or things in his life, no responsibilities, to a wife, to children, to material things. He was unaffected by this material, physical world. This was Ish Tam. Then Yaakov becomes a very wealthy man. And then his question becomes, as he's returning back to his father's home, is he still the Ish Tam, or did he become like Esav, God forbid, and just become a very wealthy man, totally engaged and occupied and connected to this material world? He's left alone, by himself, struggling with this identity. This is not a guilt issue, but it's more a crisis of identity. Is he Yaakov, or is he Esav? And in this encounter within himself, with the Sar Shel Esav within himself, the Prince of Esav within himself, he has a realization, and it becomes aware to him, that his name is no longer Yaakov, his name is no longer Jacob, but his name becomes Yisrael. Why does his name become Yisrael? Ki serisa Elokim v'anashim v'tuchel, because you have struggled with Elokim and man, and you have overcome. Which means that his name becomes somebody that encounters the physical reality, encounters the material world, is engaged with this physical world, and yet includes all the details, all the physical reality, all the details of his life into a great principle of wholeness. His wholeness, which means that he becomes a Shaleim, not a Tam. He becomes Shaleim. He becomes whole. That wholeness includes all the brokenness. The wholeness, he receives the name of Yashar, which means straight, and at the exact time when he actually experiences a brokenness in his body. And that's the wholeness. The wholeness is the completion that occurs, that includes, that transcends and includes all the brokenness and the scatteredness of this world. In simple language, this means like this. The Tam represents a person that is transcendent of the material world, beyond the physical world, someone that leaves this world and says, I don't have anything to do with this physical world. The physicality has nothing to offer me. I'm in the world of spirit. I like to contemplate, to pray, to learn. This is what I want to do with my life. I'm a Yoshev Oil. I'm sitting in the tent. Yaakov's journey takes him to another avenue. Yaakov becomes a very wealthy man with a big family, and this is what part of his divine journey was, that he should unfold in this manner. When he returns with all this wealth, he's no longer Ish Tam, but he becomes the Ish Shalom. All the details of his life, all the specific issues that he has in his life, the wives, the children, this material object and that material object, even the pach and kana, even the small jugs, they're all included within this great Shaleim. The definition of the Shaleim, of the wholeness, is a wholeness that includes all the details. Tam is a type of completion that excludes details. Shaleim is a type of completion, a wholeness that includes all the details, that includes all the brokenness perhaps, that includes everything in the physical world. And that's why Yaakov, after this internal encounter, is able to tell Esav, Yeshli Kol, I have everything. And Esav says, I have Yeshli Rav, I have many things. There's a very big distinction between everything and many things. Many things means I have a lot of things going on in my life. I have a lot of different objects and a lot of different things that are fighting for my attention. I have a job, I have a wife, I have children, I learn a little bit, I pray a little bit. This is all a lot of things going on in my life. There's a lot of scatteredness. That's the world of Toh, that's the world of chaos. That's the world of Esav. Yaakov is the world of Tikkun. Yaakov is the world of completion. What is that type of completion? Yeshli Kol. Kol means I have everything. It's also numerically 50, which means that the 50 includes the 49. The 50th level is the perfect state of true freedom. It's a freedom that's not a freedom that it's the exclusion of the details, but it's a freedom that includes all the details. It's a freedom that a person lives from a space that I may have a lot of things going on in my life, and there's a lot of different things that occupy my attention. And I have this thing going on and that thing going on. I have relationships, I have my children, I have my parents, I have my siblings, I have my family, I have my job, I have financial issues that I have to take care of. That's all part of a greater paradigm, which is called Kol, everything. The everything is the completion of all the details into the one great principle. And that's how Yaakov emerges from this encounter. Yaakov emerges from this encounter saying that he's a Yashar, he's straight. And that's the name that Hashem eventually blesses him as well and says your name is called Yisrael. He becomes yasher, straight, complete, kisarisa, because you have mastered both Elokim, the Adam. You both mastered the spiritual realm and the physical realm. Now you became a complete master. Before you left on this journey, you were a Tum. You were a master of your spiritual reality. Now that you're returning from this journey, returning back home, you became a master both of the spiritual reality, which you were before, but now you also became a master of your physical reality, of your physical possessions. You understand how to integrate that all within a greater context of kol, of everything. And he becomes a complete person, and he becomes a Shaleim. Good Shabbos.